Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Riley McManus. The Federal Electoral Boundaries Commission has backed off an unpopular proposal to merge two Northwestern Ontario ridings. The proposal was widely panned by residents in all three major political parties, and it appears the commission listened. According to its report tabled in the House of Commons today, Ryan Bonazzo has the details.
Area residents had some strong reaction to the Federal Electoral Commission's plan to merge two Northwestern Ontario ridings ahead of the next federal election.
We do not find much merit in what you have proposed.
It is ludicrous.
And now, according to a report tabled at the House of Commons today, the idea has been scrapped.
They seem to listen to us. And so I'm really happy about that.
Had the plan not been altered, the ridings of Thunder Bay Rainy River and Kenora would have merged. Liberal Marcus Pawlowski and Conservative Eric Melillo may sit on opposite sides of the political aisle, but on this issue they're united, saying it would have been tough for the remaining member to properly represent all of their constituents.
Had we remained grouped in with Kenora, it would have resulted in 20,000 constituents like 500 kilometers away, and it would have been hard to get over there and would be hard for them to talk to their MP.
They really heard the concerns that were expressed from people across our region, and that it looks like they made every attempt to try to rectify that. Of course, there's always going to be a bit of discussion about some of the specifics, but I think overall that they certainly got it right.
Under the proposed boundaries, Melillo's riding will be renamed Kenora-Kiiwetinoong, but it remains largely intact. Pawlowski still notes there will be some northern representation lost in the legislature.
It's good for the people of Northwestern Ontario. Unfortunately, though, I can't say the same for the people of Northern Ontario as a whole, because Northern Ontario has lost one seat, so I'm unhappy with that fact.
That lost riding is in the Sault Ste. Marie area. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
Homelessness, mental health, and the opioid crisis were big issues on the campaign trail leading up to the latest municipal election. And Thunder Bay's recently ratified budget does include some funding for groups working to tackle these issues. But according to the report from the Northern Policy Institute, the solutions have to include senior levels of government. Vasilios Bellos explains.
There are growing issues in our community that seem more difficult to address by the day. Poverty, homelessness, and the opioid crisis are constantly a talking point for many in Thunder Bay, with the recent budget process a chance for council to tackle it head-on. $1 million for the Community Partnership Fund, pegged for local organizations addressing homelessness and poverty on the front lines, was approved in the budget. Currently, there is no commitment from council to refill these funds in 2024. Councillor Brian Hamilton was on board with this funding, also stressing the importance for council to support the Thunder Bay District Social Services Board.
A lot of the issues surrounding homelessness, housing, and poverty are in the realm of the DSAB, the District Social Service Board. So it's incumbent on us to provide them reliable funding, and indeed, if we wanted to really tackle these homelessness, we might want to consider increasing funding to the DSAB. But it's also important to remember that homelessness is not a specific Thunder Bay issue. It's definitely a district issue. It happens right across the entire district, which the DSAB serves.
Municipalities' ability to affect change in the areas of homelessness and poverty was a key point in a research report released in August by the Northern Policy Institute. Senior policy analyst Mercedes LaBelle says these issues don't fall solely on municipalities, with real change only possible through government collaboration.
It's easy for us to see municipalities as the front line for this because they're the ones on the ground interacting with the community members, which means they face tremendous pressure from the residents to solve the issues. But they are constrained by tight budgets, and this is kind of an all-of-government approach to tackling homelessness, mental health, and addictions.
It has to be able to provide healthcare funding, addictions and mental health, and crisis beds. We really don't have that in Thunder Bay right now. We have inadequate services for the crisis that we're in.
Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Some Southside residents had an early wake-up call this morning after an impaired driver fell asleep right on the horn of a stolen truck. Police responded to the Victoria Avenue East just after 4:30 this morning to find the accused slumped over the vehicle's steering wheel. Further investigation found the truck had been reported stolen. A 37-year-old local man is charged with impaired driving, possession of methamphetamine, and possession of property obtained by crime. 5 people from Thunder Bay have been arrested in connection to a home takeover on Blucher Avenue. Police responded Thursday morning and found evidence of ongoing drug trafficking. Around $10,000 in drugs were seized. All 5 suspects remain in custody. Youth mental health was a prominent topic of conversation at a gathering of health researchers today. The 18th annual Showcase of Health Research presented by St. Joseph's Care Group was held at the Victoria Inn. Mike Lang was there.
It shouldn't come as a surprise that the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected people's mental health. But a study of primary care practices in our region found that teens have been particularly vulnerable. Brianne Wood is with the Thunder Bay Regional Research Institute and Nazem University.
We found that children and youth mental health presentations in primary care increased after March of 2020, and that this increase was seen in both boys and girls and across the different age groups. This is consistent with findings elsewhere as well.
She says youth need better access to treatment and the personalized care that they need.
They're not able to access healthcare in a timely way. They might not be able to access the healthcare that they need. And so I think having a diversity of options is really important and needs more attention.
Youth and mental health were the main focuses of today's 2023 Health Research Showcase, hosted by St. Joseph's Care Group and the Center for Applied Health Research. St. Joseph Director Michel Bédard says the showcase is about bridging the gap between researchers and practitioners in order to optimize the care that is provided.
Providing a venue for people to disseminate their research, and research that's very relevant to Northwestern Ontario. I think it's an important opportunity. But also it puts together the researchers, administrators, clinical frontline people. So I think, again, it's also an opportunity to network and to discuss and hopefully to create some connection between the clinical world and the research world as well.
These research meetings are great for actually continuing that cycle. It's about having multiple perspectives to bring some insight to the research findings, and then different people thinking about ways that you can apply that in practice. So, I mean, a great group of people here today offering their insights and good suggestions to move forward.
Wood says the need for stronger mental health supports in Northwestern Ontario continues to increase even with the height of the pandemic behind us. Next, she intends to study how that compares to other parts of the province. Mike Lang, TBT News.
For the first time since before the pandemic, Confederation College was able to connect early child education students with local employers today through its annual career fair. Program coordinator Carly Rich says it's a great time for new graduates, as there's currently a shortage of qualified educators.
We don't have enough early childhood educators to currently run our programs. Some are having to choose to close, and that impacts families. So our second-year students and graduating students are ready to hit the ground running.
On top of creating networking opportunities, Rich says the career fair offers students a chance to learn from current educators like Shannon Neveski, who has spent 24 years working in the early childhood education field.
Being in the field as long as I have, I've done pretty much all the positions up the ladder. I'm hoping to keep growing and exploring what other options I have, and if I can inspire future educators to do the same, that's only going to better our community.
I think that some of our students come into these career fairs with the initial thought that they know where they want to work. And these opportunities for the career fairs to take place and have the networking opportunities, it just opens their eyes to what it is that they can see and how they can be a part of a community in a different capacity that they may not have been aware of prior to this day.
Premier Doug Ford faced a series of tough questions this afternoon regarding the Ontario's government's plan of developing the Greenbelt in southern Ontario, after it was learned developers who stand to benefit from the government's decision attended the Premier's daughter's wedding. Siobhan Morris has the latest.
The government's decision to open up 7,400 hectares of the Greenbelt to build homes is now the subject of 2 investigations.
A big part of this is about shining some light into some dark corners.
At the request of the NDP, the Integrity Commissioner will examine whether the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing broke ethics rules. The government has been dogged by questions about whether developers got a heads up on Greenbelt changes. The Premier and Housing Minister say no, but protected lands were snatched up not long before the changes were announced.
When we submitted our request, we certainly felt there was a strong case to be made, a larger body of evidence with regard to the minister and his former staff.
The Integrity Commissioner shut down a request by the Greens to look at the Premier, too.
These land deals don't pass the smell test. They need to be investigated because the Premier is not being open, transparent, and honest with the people of Ontario.
The Integrity Commissioner says it's entirely possible that someone may have alerted landowners, but David Wake adds that there is no evidence that either the Premier or the Minister advanced their private interest with the Greenbelt changes. That point is being seized upon by Minister Steve Clark's office. A spokesperson writes in part, the minister also looks forward to being cleared of any wrongdoing at the conclusion of the investigation. But the commissioner and opposition note there is more to consider.
This is about whether or not anybody else would have also, any other person may have benefited.
If the commissioner finds Clark broke ethics rules, it would be up to the legislature to impose a penalty. Ontario's Auditor General is also digging into the Greenbelt plan, following up on a request from all three opposition parties to examine its financial and environmental effects.
What we want to know is whether the decisions that were made now really are a loss to Ontarians.
The government says it will cooperate and share more on its plan to build 50,000 homes on former Greenbelt lands. The Auditor General intends to issue her report later this year.
And that was CTV's Siobhan Morris reporting. Minus 35-degree weather may provoke groans here in the city, but in Fly-In First Nations, you're more likely to hear a sigh of relief, as 2 weeks of frigid temperatures have finally allowed the winter roads to open in most communities. The Martin Falls and Fort Severn roads are still under construction, but most winter roads in the region are now open to at least light traffic, with some open to heavier trucks and 5 communities open to full loads. Muskrat Dam is one of those communities. Special Projects Manager Roy Fiddler is responsible for the 80-kilometer stretch of road leading to his community. He says they've been able to increase loads with every crossing of the Severn River. And on Thursday night, they were finally able to bring in a full load of diesel, weighing about 80,000 pounds.
Everybody's relieved that it's happening again. So that 2-week cold snap there really helped us. So it's good to see that the semis are rolling in again. Getting really busy with everybody hauling in their gas, their diesel, housing supplies, what have you.
The weather has warmed up again, and Fiddler is encouraging people to travel the roads at night when the temperatures drop. Still, he's hopeful the roads will remain open well into March. An Indigenous youth-led charity, Feathers of Hope, received a big donation today. More than $25,000 was handed over, and the money was all collected through the sales of Every Child Matters flags and T-shirts. Superior Strategies, which is also 100% Indigenous owned, has been selling the merchandise since 2021. Jason Thompson says he wanted to do something in response to the discovery of mass graves at former residential school sites across the country. Feathers of Hope is an organization that strives to give Indigenous young people the tools to help build a healthy and safe community.
Well, I think they're an organization that's also, looking to find their place in the city and really, grow some awareness, right? The fact that, again, they're supporting our Indigenous youth are important, and it's a big part of who we are. And if we can help support them, give them some extra dollars that, they might not have access to, we're happy to do that, because the messaging and what the organizations stand for is near and dear to my heart.
It's amazing. It's very exciting because everything that we want to accomplish, it makes it that much easier now. Day by day, we're making things happen, and when the community comes together and makes such a generous donation like this, it really is affecting the lives of youth.
Lagarde says this donation will be put toward the creation of a Feathers of Hope podcast to spread the group's message even further. Every Child Matters t-shirts and flags are still available for purchase through Superior Strategies.